Today I want to share with you our homeschool schedule. We started our homeschool year about 2 weeks ago, and the schedule that I have updated now is not what I had planned at the very beginning. As we started, I was able to make adjustments and figure out what worked best for our family. So I'm going to share that with you now that we've been in it for 2 weeks. I always find it helpful when I can look at someone else's schedule because it almost just puts an idea in my head that then I can make my own. All right, so let's get started. I'm Jamie, and this is Simply Learning Together. I am a mom of 4. My kids are 11, 9, 6, and almost 5, and we have been homeschooling for 7 years. Every year has looked so different. As they grow, the way that you do things changes so much. I also feel like the schedule you make at the beginning of the year never stays that way. The seasons change, the weather changes, the sports activities come up, so we're constantly adjusting. I do like to have some type of schedule to keep me focused during the day. My type of personality is if I don't have it written out, whether it be in a notebook paper or in a fancy chart, I tend to just kind of be like, oh, I don't know what to do. And do nothing, right? So it's not good for me. I prefer something that I can keep my focus and know if we do all these things around this time, we are going to accomplish, all of this by the end of the day. And that is a good feeling. So I know there's people out there that prefer not to do a schedule. I would say that when I had infants and babies and little toddlers, something like this probably would have made me nauseous, because that is a time where you really just got to do what you got to do, when you work when you can work. But now that my kids are older, we can have a much more consistent routine, and so a schedule like this is really helpful to me. And I also have time to make it. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the schedule first, and I'll just tell you a couple quick things about it so you can see it. Then I would like to walk you through a day in our life and just kind of explain how that flow goes. If you're here to just see the chart, I'm going to show you that first, but if you'd like to hear kind of some flow and some extra chatty things about the day, stick around and we're going to dive into that as well. Here's a look at our schedule. You can see that only 3 days of the week are actually full of lessons. We have 1 day a week dedicated to our co-op, and then on Fridays, we meet with our adventure club group, which is kind of an outdoor nature group, and that takes up half the morning. A couple notes to point out: the morning time, I have 8 to 9. It never takes an hour, but I do like having that big chunk of time available to kind of give us some flexibility as far as starting the next thing. We take an outside break and then focus on our core lessons before lunch. Once we get to lunch, my goal is to do history and science and catch up with anything that we have. Our co-op will have some graded work, and so that is my goal, to try to help them get those things done if they need to in the afternoon. And then we always do a quiet time in the afternoon, which I put that here as well. Normally on Friday, it's just kind of like a totally different day, so the bottom just looks a little bit different. We may or may not do a quiet time on that day. So as I mentioned, we are only at home for full day, 3 days a week. This year we are joining a co-op, which is going to be an all-day deal. I do not plan to do any of our lessons on that day. There is some worry with that, but I'm just going with it. We are really looking forward to this co-op, and my kids are going to get a lot of different things from it. So that day is just focused on going to that and coming home. The other day that we are out of the house is on Fridays, and we are gone most of the morning. My goal on that Friday is just to accomplish math and grammar and probably history and science, because we are going to have things done for those 2 subjects for our co-op. So I really want to make sure I kind of get on that, and anything that we want to catch up with. So Friday will be a super light day. Let's take a look at a full day and just let you know kind of how the flow goes. So my first block of time is 8 to 9 o'clock. That's an hour. It does not take me an hour to do morning time. it probably is more like 20 to 30 minutes. But the reason I put an hour in there is because I want to feel like I'm on time. And I don't want, like, if my kids sleep in or if we get a late start, I don't want to feel rushed to get going. You might look at breakfast 8 o'clock and think, oh my gosh, you're up? We are. I am for sure. My kids usually get out of bed anywhere from 7:30 to 8. I shared before, my kids get dressed right away and we just kind of kick off our day. So each morning time I do scripture memory, sing a hymn, read a poem, read a question from our little kids apologetic book, and then I rotate one reading after that. So sometimes it's a picture book, another day we're doing a composer study. That all together, it only takes about 20 minutes. So even though I have an hour time, I have a lot of flexibility and I need that. I don't want to start my day already feeling like I'm behind. Once that's finished, I clean up and my kids get outside. I have found it really helpful, if the weather is right, for them to get outdoors the first part of the day. Move their legs, get the sun on their face. It just really helps starting the lessons. So they go outside till about 9:30, and at that time I call my oldest in and teach her math. The reason I chose to teach her math first is because she can do almost everything on her checklist independently at this point. In order for her to kind of take off, she's got to get that math lesson. So that is my goal, to teach her that math lesson first so that she can then just go. It usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes to teach her a math lesson, and then she goes off and finishes her checklist. I am always available. I constantly hear, Mom, I need help, and I'm going back and forth as best as I can. So, there is some bouncing around, but then she mostly does everything else independently. When I finish with her, then I move on to my second daughter to teach her math lesson. Now, I originally thought that I could do math and language arts with this child because I've done that in the past, and I have found that it helps her to just kind of do it in one big chunk instead of go play and come back in and go play and come back in. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's hard to take them out of those play transitions. Anyway, my point is I tried that and it did not work. It was too long to sit. I am 37 and I had a hard time sitting through that. And it was probably 40 minutes, but that was a lot. Really overstimulating, just tons and tons of stuff to go through for her to be able to work independently. So we now just focus on one subject at the first part, math. So I teach her math lesson, and then she goes and works on that math lesson independently. While she's working independently and my oldest is still working independently, then I bring in my third daughter and we get all of her subjects done in one sitting. It really only takes about 30 minutes. She's a first grader. We do her math lesson together. She practices some reading with me. Sometimes we'll do something extra for our picture book study that we're doing, whether it's maybe a quick little spelling practice or maybe a little activity. Copy work she does, just little bitty things, and it's maybe a 30-minute time period. At this point, we're all pretty hungry and ready to move. So even though it's not on the schedule, there's a good chunk of time where we kind of just go out, get some sun, and I'm cutting up a snack, which is usually fruit, and it kind of just revives us to keep on going. Personally, I feel like our morning moves pretty hardcore. I am very much like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But I have a reason for that. I really like certain things to get accomplished in the afternoon. And we'll get to that as we go, but that is something that is important to me. And so getting all of that done in the morning helps me accomplish that in the afternoon. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Once I finish my lessons with my first grader and we've kind of had a wiggle break outside, maybe a snack, then I come back to my second daughter and we work on her language arts, which at this point is usually some copy work from her novel study. We do some grammar review and we work on spelling. I do not work on spelling every day with all of my children, but this child in particular, she really needs a lot of repetition. and spelling is not natural for her. So I have chosen this year to work on spelling every day. This sitting with her is probably about 15 minutes. It doesn't take that long. So at that point, if she has anything else that she needs to finish independently, she can. I can also check her math at that point and go over anything with her if that's needed. I should mention my son, he is almost 5. He is technically in pre-K this year, but I do not have any formal curriculum with him at this point. He is in co-op. He's going to be doing some activities like a letter a week, and I think they have like a science or an arts and crafts class. So like he'll get stuff through that. And at home, he pretty much participates with us in morning time, plays outside, and then plays on his own near us as we're doing school. And that's been really great. If I see him have an interest in some type of work where, he wants to do it more, I will allow that. Sometimes he's like, I want to write my name. Okay, let's write your name. So you won't see him on the schedule because it's kind of just going at his pace. All right, so at this point, I have taught all of our main lessons, and it's usually somewhere around 11 or 11:30. And I'm going to be honest, at this time of day, there's a cranky kid and I haven't quite figured out how to solve that, but I will. So something has to be done there. But people are starting to get hungry for lunch, and we've moved really hard. We're all kind of stimulated a little bit. And I am like, whew, okay, here we go, trying to push through a little bit longer. And to me, it feels good to just get it done so that they can play freely later. So right before lunch, I do something called a check-in, and I'm basically just making sure that all of my kids' checklist is done, and I'm grading any work that was finished independently. So with my oldest, I will look at her math work and we'll go over anything that we need to. With my second child, I'm grading anything that she did. So it's basically just check in, make sure everything's finished. Then 2 days a week, I do a course called Biblical Worldview with my oldest daughter. This is new for us. We do it twice a week. And so far, I have loved the conversations. I cannot wait to share this one with you guys. But I want to work in it a little bit more before I do. So that lesson takes about 15 or 20 minutes. And at that point, I say, okay, we're pausing and it's time for lunch. So I make lunch, my kids go out and play, and that's kind of like a checkpoint for us. Okay, we've accomplished most of our things, right? Now, that's all we have done for the last 2 weeks. We have mostly gotten everything accomplished by lunchtime. Next week, we start our co-op, which then we will add in history and science. I am hoping to accomplish those after lunch. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that. I do have the audiobook for both, and I think that's going to be really helpful. It's mainly just going to be reading the lessons and doing any assignments that the older kids have. There is 1 day a week that I have a geography lesson at that time instead. And that we're using Simply Charlotte Mason geography, and that's been going really well. It's once a week, which feels super doable. That I have the whole hour blocked off for that. I don't really think it will take that long, but like I said, I don't want to be rushed through anything. And if lunch cleanup or anything goes later, that's not a problem. I also have considered using some of the lunchtime while we're sitting there to read if we feel up to it, but a lot of times I'm really tired and I just want to eat in quiet and not read. So we will see how that goes. The last couple of things in our day are catch up and assignments. So anything we need to finish, and my kids do have work that they have to turn in on a weekly basis. So I'll make sure that that's done. And then we do have a quiet time, and quiet time is so important to me. This is the thing I keep talking about afternoon, making sure we get everything done. At quiet time, all of my kids are in separate rooms. Almost all of them listen to an audiobook, and they do something on their own. I go and walk, and I love it. I take a walk in the neighborhood. My husband works from home, so there is a supervisor. I get out of the house, I get the sun on my face, and this is such a blessing. I'm so happy that I can do this, but that walk is so reviving for me that is why I work so hard in the morning to get our stuff done, because I want to go on that walk. I usually listen to a podcast or a book. Lately, I've been just listening to music, like classical music, just so I can think, because my brain is just going. It sounds cheesy, but it's actually been really relaxing. You'll notice that's where my day ends. From 3:30 to about 5, it's kind of just some free time. Sometimes I will, sit down with the kids and have like tea and a treat. That doesn't happen all the time, but we do enjoy that. Sometimes they'll just go play and I'll work on some of the content that I create. Other times we might make a quick trip to the library. So it's kind of just a free moment for us to figure out what we want to do. Sometimes I'm doing laundry or cleaning up. Speaking of that, by the end of the day, you'll notice like there's no chores or anything. By the end of the day, my house is a wreck. So I just want to point that out. There is, if I feel overwhelmed, I'll say, okay, I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes and everybody's going to work to pick up. And so that's kind of how we will, finish out our day so that they can play. Yeah, because that does happen very, very often. Especially with my 4-year-old who's been playing freely all day. He tends to spread. And so, I look at my living room, I'm like, oh, wow, this has happened. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the day. Then we have dinner. And none of this is on the schedule, but it pretty much flows the same way. After dinner, we hang out. My kids go and play again. I'm going to be really upset when it gets dark early because they're not going to be able to do that, but that's fine. And then we close out our evening starting at about 7:30. Our kids start to get ready for bed. They don't go to bed because we do a couple of things that are technically counted as school at bedtime. Right now, we read a family devotion, and then I read our novel that we use for language arts. So after we do that, then my kids go in their room and they all do their own personal reading. That is kind of like a rule in our house. You have to be reading something. I don't really have silent reading or anything assigned during my day because they read every night before bed and it winds them down and they're usually going to sleep around 9 o'clock. So yeah, that's kind of what our day looks like. And that's what our full day looks like. The days that we're not really going to co-op or to our adventure group, it's a full day of lessons. It's been a good flow so far. I know it will be a little bit of an adjustment when we add in our history and science after lunch, but I think I think it'll be good if we know that we've got all of our core subjects done. And that might even adjust too, because I don't really even know what that feels like yet. So as we start to do that, I might be able to balance out a little bit more how I want to fit it in. As I said at the beginning of the video, in about 6 weeks, it may change again. I'm constantly making adjustments as we need. And also based on my kids, if I start to notice something's not working, I am going to shift it. But I do like to have some sort of outline or schedule to follow and to keep me motivated and on track. I do have this template free if you're interested in downloading it. It's a Canva template and it'll just be blank. It'll have all these boxes here and you can go and you can change it however you want. You can change the colors, you can add or take away rows and columns, you can change these times right here. It's totally up to you, but it's basically just a starting point if you wanted something to try to put a schedule in, and it's free. All right, I look forward to chatting with you guys again soon.